so with a close proximity on the property, I give our deputies permission to go ahead and go check the ponds, just because we didn't want to just hold a perimeter and the child be, John be in the pond.
Yeah.
So they ran and checked the ponds just to see, visually, didn't see anything. In the early portion of it up until, I would say, around midnight, we got there about 1:15, so Dad wasn't placed in custody until after midnight. So up until midnight, Dad was showing, he walked the property with Deputy Lavalette, kind of showing him some of the places that, that we should look. I think, just from my standpoint of going out Saturday and walking, obviously we don't know what direction that he went, but just walking from the house to the recovery and walking the train, it's easy to see how he could have made up a lot of ground, because once you've got past, the green field and a little small patch of woods behind the residence, it's really hunting roads, and because it's hunting property, so it's easy and clear to make up a lot of ground really quick. So in that couple hour delay that we had from the time that we were called, he could have made up a lot more ground than we really anticipated.
Well, and a child and a dog can get places pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the day that we got the news, I was in the woods. Once we cleared the house, and the house was marked safe and the property was marked safe, I was in the woods with the mother, the brother, Isaac, and one of the search teams. And one of the ladies with the search team had built a rapport with Isaac, and Isaac would whisper to her, secret spots that they would go that they wasn't supposed to go, but
Right.
To just kind of give us a mindset. But even at 6 years old, just watching him maneuver through the woods, I had already processed in my mind that he could be pretty far off in the woods, just watching him move through the woods. And again, my understanding of these two boys, like I said, they were very adventurous.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard him turn around and ask his mother as he's trying to show us spots, he's excited because he wants to go on to the next adventure, that he had some friends that he was wanting to go see so they could have an adventure. So,
Right.
So the woods was an adventure to them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one thing that people don't understand or miss the point sometimes, is that these kids, this wasn't their first rodeo in the woods. They like to be out there, and this is probably what they did for fun every day. And you wouldn't know where they would go and that sort of thing. But I did that as a kid too, growing up in Empire. Sometimes the only fun you had was to go out in the woods,
Right.
So there's no, with the ground that you guys covered, there was no telling where he could have been.
Yeah.
And Regina, speak some to the actual distance and ground that you guys covered. I know it was like 500 acres the first day.
The first day we covered 500 acres. I'll have to total up on day two, but without a point of where we knew where he was last seen.
Yeah.
But we did not know in what direction he had gone. The dogs couldn't pick up a scent. We were asking anybody in the area if they had trail cameras out, if they saw him on their cameras. We got no indication that any cameras in the area picked him up. So, we also had to stay within a certain distance of the residence due to what was at the residence. So we started establishing grids, like 500 to 700 yards from the residence where he went missing in the site he was seen, and worked north, south, east, west in every direction. We would send a team out to a grid, and we would establish a line of grids. Once we got those grids full of search teams, we would create another line of grids, to the west, east, north, south of it, and we would just work our way. We would keep sending teams out until we were covering as many grids in a day that we could.
And have either one of you guys ever been experienced with anything like this?
Not in my 22-year career have we had this extensive a search of a missing child. The sheriff and myself even said that day, usually within an hour or two we have located a missing child. They're usually hiding in the house or outside somewhere close by. So this was my first experience. That's why initially I made a few phone calls to bring teams in that my counties that have Bankhead.
Yeah.
These teams are well versed in search in Bankhead. The CalTopo system that they brought in and set up, those are counties that are versed in search from Bankhead searches. So we started calling the people that were more experienced in these type of searches. Dive teams that we knew, they worked with us in our dive and recovery teams. We were bringing in the most top notch that we worked with, or that we knew had the most experience in this type of search. I've seen somebody say divers are not the most efficient way to search water. Well, we had Aqua Eye, which is a handheld sonar underwater. With Childersburg team came out, ran it. If they showed anything of interest, we would run a dog around the pond. If the dog changed behavior or indicated, then we would send a dive team down. We would utilize teams like the dive team. If we didn't have an area of interest on the waterway to search, we had them on the ground in a grid searching.
Right.
So we utilized not only their expertise, but when that wasn't able to be used, we would send them out to a different area to search on foot, and that was at their request.
And do you think that there was any technology or anything that you guys didn't have that you needed?
I'm not aware of any. I'm not the most advanced expert on search devices and techniques, but I know that between air, from aviation and drone and foot and dive, all of the aspects that were coming into us, I think we utilized everything that was available. I'm not sure what else we could
and
have
at the
done.
end of the day, none of those are 100%.
Right.
But utilizing them all together, we were able to find John.
Yeah, and
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not how we wanted it to end by any means, but it was an effective search in the fact that we were able to locate him.
Right.
So all of the methods that we put into place were effective.
And there's been a lot of people talk about, well, how did they not see the dog with the thermals and things like that? And Nick just mentioned before we came on the air that y'all did find like a rabbit, something as small as a rabbit, just
Yeah.
didn't happen to see the dog.
Even I think it was either the first night or it was the second. My days run together. I had to wake up this morning and ask my wife what day it was.
Yeah.
So, but I heard them call Captain Leg out. It was at night about a heat sensor, and it was out toward Bennett Road, and he went out there and checked it. It was a rabbit.
Yeah.
So it was picking up heat. The only thing, and I'm not a professional in those type. I'm not a K9 handler. I'm not certified as a K9 handler, nor drone operator or pilot. So obviously I can't answer those questions. But where he was recovered was in a hole. It was in the there was a bank that went down to water. So he was low, and I don't know if that makes a difference or
Right.
not. And if the dog was in it with him down in that, in that hole, I don't know.
Right, yeah. And from looking at the grids that you had showed me earlier, y'all were moving in that right direction. Like y'all were about to find him, just going through the grid process, but he was just so far out.
The team that we deployed were actually going through the property where he was located to their grid. That we thought by map that was the easiest way to get to their search area.
Yeah.
And they found him moving. But the grid where he was located would have been our next row we added. So
Yeah.
we were right there and extending everything.
And people don't know the work, and I witnessed it firsthand of what was going on upstairs. You had the state, ATF, you had FBI up there working. We've got the timeline and everything just plastered all over the walls, just working. We sent out teams to go search all the sex offenders that were within a close mile radius, to search their residence, just to kind of just go down the checklist of every possibility out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people need to know is that it never stopped, and it was more than what you could see or more than what you would hear about. I've been in media here for 30 years now, and I've never seen anything like this happen.
And I don't know what's the last time the FBI has been here on a missing person case was probably in the 90s.
Right.
So obviously it wasn't the outcome we wanted, and they're still working. Like we're still working this today.
Right.
It hasn't stopped. Just because he was recovered, it didn't stop.
Right. Yeah, there's still a lot of things to do. And and it wasn't the outcome that everybody had hoped for, but you guys did do your job and you found this family's child, you know, and that goes a long way, even though it wasn't that he was safe. What if we hadn't found him by this point right now, you know?
We would still be out there.
Yeah, y'all would still be out there.
We would still be out there searching.
And the
That
family would
would've
still
stopped.
be asking questions, you know?
His mom's family told us that, the day right after we notified them. They just thanked us because they said, now we know. We don't have to wonder anymore. And because that was their biggest nightmare, the what ifs and the wondering about, was he hungry, was he cold? And then, you know, then they had their answer. It may not be the answer any of us wanted to give them, but it was, I mean, it was a closure.
You know, that, you know, that kind of notification, you know, that's not something that, you know, I've ever had to do before.
Yeah.
You know, especially a child of, you know, like John at 4 years old. It's just not something that, you know, in my over 20 years that I've had to do.
Yeah, and I've worked with both you guys for a long time, and I don't know if I've ever seen, not just you guys, but all of the law enforcement, all the first responders that were out there, the strain that it put on you guys and the stress, just your demeanor when you were talking, you could tell it was really weighing on you all the way through the process, you know.
Yeah. And like I said, there was times like, you know, from just a standpoint, like I was embarrassed to even be in a circle with folks because I stunk so bad, you know,
Yeah.
and it was just, you know, just one of those things like you can't, once you get started, you just can't turn it off in your mind. You want to, you know, you want to find, you know, you got a missing 4-year-old out there in John, and you just want to find him as soon as you can.
Yeah.
And like I said, all the misinformation about, the only thing that was paused was civilian volunteer searches. Law
Right.
enforcement, fire departments, they searched for a solid 2 days.
And that was for safety reasons, for a variety of reasons, not just that you guys found the explosives. Now, how much did the explosives, did it take anything away from the search at all? Because I didn't think it did, but that's what people try to kind of.
No, I mean, only around the house.
Right.
And it only stopped the searching around the house. Like Regina said, they started at about 500
500 to 700 yards
500
away
to
from the
700
residence.
yards away from the house, and they started working. So it never affected anything but around the house.
Right.
Now the next day, when they got across the street, which was the opposite
Opposite
way,
direction, yeah.
opposite direction of where we recovered John, they started finding items that they thought might be explosive. So when they had marked up to 8 possible items, it was like, hey, we've got to pull these volunteers out. We'll just continue with fire department personnel. We'll pull the civilians out. So it didn't even stop then.
Well, and even the methamphetamine charge, all that, none of that had anything, everything was always separate from
Yeah, so
the missing child.
you know, like people would say, well, y'all focus your time on arresting the dad or whatever. We had over 100 law enforcement there. It don't take 100 people to arrest somebody.
Right.
You know, there was 2 or 3 people handling that, and you still had 100-something law enforcement out and about doing their job.
And how many, what do you think was the highest number of people that were out there at one time?
We had 166 people divided on one search in 3 groups at one time. You can see people, I guess passerbys took videos of our search teams pretty much fingertip to fingertip walking wooded areas. And that was nonstop all day until we started finding things that we were afraid could hurt the people out there searching. The citizens that are not trained have never gone on a search before, and that was everything in a search is a moving part, and we're responsible for the safety of that moving part. You know, it's like we've said before, every resource is a manageable resource. We have to have somebody to deploy it, work with it, get it back safely. And when you have 300 of those and 6 of us managing it, it's a lot. And people also don't realize we had two commands set up. EMA took search. Law enforcement took explosives and investigations. So they were working alongside us. We were all working for the same thing, but 2 different aspects of what we were doing. I kept constantly with the sheriff saying, hey, this is where we're at. What do you want to do? We got these teams. Do you want to utilize them? He said yes to everything. But when we say yes to everything, we brought in more people to manage that, to continue to work with the bigger groups. So we never stopped on that side. And we brought in multiple, like I said, multiple ways of even checking waterways. We had aqua cadaver dog teams, dive teams. Like, we had everything that showed up and wanted to work, we worked them.
Oh, yeah,
And the
definitely.
waterways did not hinder the foot searches. That was, we had specialized teams just for that mission, and then we had just ground teams. So even when we did a triple search of a waterway, that did not affect the ground searches and the grits being pushed forward.
Right.
So we had enough that we were able to really thoroughly search, and I think some people thought we were just taking too long, but I'm like, it's easy to find a straight path when you know where he went. Well, we did not know, and some of that terrain out there, old strip pits, is not easy to maneuver.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not.
Yeah, even for professionals, that's a tough
That
tough
is a tough.
spot. Well, let's take a break real quick. I want to take our bottom of the hour break, and we'll be right back to talk some more about how you guys pulled everybody together. And then I really do want you guys also to talk about how proud you are of Walker County, too, before we wrap up. So we'll take a break here on Live at 9. Be right back here on WJLX. All right, we're back on Live at 9. James Phillips. Got Nick Smith with me and Regina Myers talking about the search last week for John and the things that have come out of that. And so we were talking right before we went to the break about the ability to pull all these people together and to keep people on the same page. Go into that a little further about, and this isn't just you guys making decisions. There's so many specialists and people who are trained to do this stuff. You guys don't look for a missing child every week, talk about being able to bring people together like you did.
Yeah, we were blessed to have these teams that some of the other EMAs, we had 6 other county emergency management agencies come in to help us bring in teams that they utilized. And like I said, I focus on bankhead search because that's who we brought in a lot of those teams. They had contacts for searches that they had done, and they knew like dog teams that were really effective and could get here quickly. They started contacting their own teams, or if their teams were contacting them, we were like, tell them to come on. We never turned down any resource that asked to come, whether it was citizens that showed up, we put them somewhere working, or an expert team, we put them out doing whatever their field of expertise was. I know a lot of people kind of had to sit for a while if we were running dog teams, because you can't have a lot of people in the areas where dogs are searching. It affects their scent. We had to ground drones if the choppers were up. So a lot of that stuff, not only did we have the resource, but we had to work it in where it didn't interfere with another shift, like another resource we were utilizing in the area. And I think at one point the dogs got outside of their grid and got into grids where we had searchers, so we actually had to pull them out and put them in a different area so that it didn't affect where the dogs were. So we have to work, a lot of that has to be taken into account also. It's not just everybody shows up and send everybody out together. You have to work it in a fashion where one doesn't hurt the other's efforts.
Right. And one thing that people forget too, there were still other things going on. So if there were crimes happening or accidents happening, things like that, there had to be first responders at those things too. So everything runs together in this.
And obviously, I mean, our deputies, we never were stopped answering calls. They were out answering calls, and you get folks that get aggravated because they had their weed eater or something taken, and they don't want to hear that. I mean,
Right.
as sad as it is, they don't want to hear that you're out looking for a missing 4-year-old child. They want their weed eater back.
Right.
And but we still had deputies out to manage those type calls and get out and be able to do reports and handle those cases.
Well, and this was a holiday. You wouldn't have normally had as many people on staff for that. And even the volunteers that came out, they took time out of their holiday to be searching for somebody that most of them didn't know.
And our lead fire department, whose coverage we ran, they had a structure fire right in the middle of our search efforts, so we had to shift them on to doing what their task is. They had a structure to go put out, so we kind of filled in the gaps for them on their side that they were working on during the search, so that they could actually go out and put out handle a structure fire. So every life continued to happen in the midst of what we were doing. And then, like I said, unified command system, as far as we were working two aspects at once, the law enforcement side of it with all the different law enforcement agencies that had to come in. And then we were also working the search side, which consisted of EMA, fire department, search and rescue, and everything on that side. So it was a very large response in 48 hours, and we were all trying to control it under the sheriff. But he had both sides he was having to handle at the same time. So.
Right. And you guys have pages and pages of volunteers that were signed.
We had hundreds of volunteers each day that were just citizens. One day alone, on the responder side, we had, not counting law enforcement and emergency management, we had 110 firemen and search and rescue people come out, and that was just one day.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Walker County and how proud you are of the response that we had as a community.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a tremendous response. When I got there, I seen kids from Carbon Hill High School. I know I seen some from Curry, and I'm sure there was kids from other high schools across the county that were out ready and wanting and willing to search. I have two young daughters, one 16 and one fixing to be 12, and they were moved by what they were seeing, and they wanted to get out there and help. My daughter was on one of the search teams out there helping search. My other one was trying to help out in the kitchen with my wife. And, I've seen grandmas and grandpas, and even when I talked to the volunteer group that was out searching, I would say that they were a majority an older group, except for maybe one or two were younger. But, that says a lot about our community. Like I said, I've seen grandmas and grandpas come out, whether they was on a cane or what. They wanted to do whatever they could do to help. I seen, I'm not sure who all came out with the county commission because I wasn't all there, but I seen our commissioners there. I know I seen Jeff Burrows. I seen John Dunnigan out there. Others may have came. I just didn't see them. Seen Greg Barnes out there, a representative. I seen him out there
I believe he was
helping
actually on a
search.
search team.
And
Yeah.
he was on the search team
Yeah.
around the house, actually, that first morning. Seen Mike Elliott. He was out there. So I mean, we had everybody that was willing. Alan Estelle, constable. He was out there. There was constables out there
We
that
had
that
school
were
board members out there helping us.
Yeah, school board. I mean, it was a real true community come together that we had one common goal. You know, it doesn't matter how you feel about me or how you feel about anybody else. This was you set differences aside, and that was the proudest moment for me, was to see people set differences aside and really come together for one common goal.
Yeah.
And I've had people that came and helped us from other counties, even up into Tennessee, that have really bragged about the Walker County community. They said that they were surprised at the outpouring of support we had within our own community. And it's like we've said several times, when we get a bad rap, people love to talk bad about us. But being in disaster response for 22 years, I can tell you, we have good people here. They
Yeah.
show up and they show out when it comes to a need. Doesn't matter who you are, what you think about any politics or anything else. All that matters is the task at hand. And like I said, we've had a lot of outpouring of people just bragging on how wonderful our little community was. And I mean, we think that all the time, but it's nice to hear outsiders say it.
Well, and I know this is something that you guys and people who really were working the search teams will never forget, but I hope it's something that our county as a whole doesn't forget very soon, because it did bring everybody together, and we didn't care. We didn't care what any difference. It was all about finding this little guy. You
And
know?
we all had one common goal and nothing else mattered.
It's like you said earlier, I wish it was like that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that
It would have been
people could
nice. It would
really
be,
just be on the same page with one common goal, and that's to get along, regardless if we agree or disagree.
Yeah.
But we're here and we got each other's backs.
Yeah. How many times over the years has me and you disagreed?
Yeah.
So-
We disagree. I mean, sometimes you just agree to disagree, but I
Yeah.
still love you though.
Right, that's the thing, you know, and that's how we should be with everybody. What have you guys, is there anything that you take from this to move forward in the future as far as learning in case something happens like this again? I mean, is there anything?
every time we work a big response effort, whether it's in disaster or, I mean, some calls, just in my hazmat response, we learned something. We've discussed, some of the team members that came help us asked if we were gonna have like an after-action review, which I've got to get with the sheriff on, to kind of sit and everybody that was there kind of in incident command say what worked, what didn't work. We'll take that and we'll try to make it better for next time. Some things are always gonna go wrong no matter how hard we try. But we always go back to the table and say, okay, let's try to fix it before next time. And sometimes we can, and sometimes we may still fail, but we're out there trying.
Yeah, well, and there's so many variables, like
Yeah.
you know, nothing's gonna be the exact same as this incident.
Well, this exact same search in a different part of the county would look completely different. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so different. Everything we do is completely different, but you can still take something you learned from the one before and take it to the next.
Right.
And maybe do better or do it faster.
Yeah, it was about, I guess, 2 years ago, our aviation, we're only operational during the day because we don't have access to thermals and things of that nature. But I think it was, it's been about 2 years ago now, two girls ran off in the woods, and, you know, obviously weather conditions and things of that was different, but it was still several hours. We ended up finding them. They had made it through the woods, and they had saw the helicopter, and they had made it to almost the interstate I-22. You know, they were waving, trying to get the helicopter's attention, and we were able to find them. And, you know, in most situations, like you said, we either find them in the house. They're really not very far from home. You know, this situation was just it was a little different because these kids love the woods.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from just witnessing Isaac in the woods that it was obvious that they loved the woods. They saw it as an adventure, and they were could move really well through the woods for a small child.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I can't help but think, like, he was just having a fun day with his dog. They were
Right.
just out having an adventure, having a fun day. We knew the danger and the possibilities, but he was just having a fun day with his dog.
Yeah. Now,
So-
what's the next steps as far as the investigation goes? And
You know, right now, you know, yesterday we got just a preliminary that, you know, there wasn't any kind of trauma, there wasn't any kind of assault, so obviously, anything else is gonna require further testing, so to determine, you know, what it, exactly the cause of death is probably gonna take some time before they release whatever the final conclusion is of the cause of death, but we can rule out that, you know, he wasn't beaten, that he wasn't, you know, didn't suffer from some kind of explosion, or he didn't suffer from a gunshot or any kind of major type trauma.
right, so you can pretty well say you don't really think there's any kind of foul play involved, are you?
Yeah, like I said, I don't see it as of yet, but like I said, the investigation's not over, and we'll continue everything, and you know, the final decision will rest with the DA. You know, obviously, once the investigation is concluded, we have a cause of death. We'll present everything to the district attorney, and he'll review, and it will either be a tragic accident, or it will be, you know, charges, you know, brought. You know, obviously, it's too early for me to make that assessment. I'd hate to say that it was just an accident and then down the road it turns out to be different.
Right.
I'd hate to say that it was not an accident and it turned out to be an accident. So it's just hard to, you know, I can't really say one way or the other.
Well, in the time we live in, people want the information immediately, and they want to know everything. And the autopsies take a while. So do you think it's weeks, months?
You know, I've seen them take as long as 6 months
That's
to
what
get you know, to get a final autopsy. You know, usually preliminary, you usually have within a short amount of time, but anything official and final is probably going to take a while.
Right. Anything on your side of it left to do besides go crunch these numbers of all these papers that you have?
Yeah, I'm gonna put together like a total picture for the sheriff. Then hopefully we'll get together and have the action review to get everybody together to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and everything else, and then hopefully be better prepared for that. We can show a full picture of how we responded from the initial call to the unfortunate when we found him, because there's a lot in there in between, a whole lot of moving parts and a whole lot of people. It's a very big task. We're also having to do our everyday jobs in the midst of putting all this together, so it's, you know, it takes a little time.
Now, what you guys have been probably in contact with the family as much as anybody. What has been the family's reaction?
I will speak very, very, very appreciative. The mom, she's just precious. I will say that. She's been very appreciative, and again, her family has just thanked us because they said while it wasn't the ending that they wanted, it was closure. They no longer have to worry. They know the outcome, and that's hard to hear. That's hard news too for the sheriff to have to deliver, and it's hard for us to hear. And we've had a lot of negativity, but I don't think people understand how hard this was on us.
Yeah.
Because we gave it everything we had for 48 hours just to have the outcome that we did, and it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah. How about you, Nick?
You know, there's going to be people that came out that I never saw, and there's going to be people that I was able to talk to. But for everybody who came out, I just want to thank them for their efforts, for coming out and being of assistance and being willing and able to come out and help. And like I said, and if I don't never see those individuals again to shake their hand and say thank you, I hope that they see this and accept, this as a thank you.
When I went to the prayer vigil the other night, and that was such a good thing to see. I almost didn't go, and I kept thinking, okay. And then I go, and to see every different type of person there, this wasn't just, it was every race, gender, whatever was there for one reason, and that was to kind of show the support for the family and offer prayers and well wishes to them. And that meant a lot. And I think it should have for anybody who, this has been a very emotional event for everybody in Walker County. So I think that was a good thing too, to see everybody come together for something like that.
Yeah, there were several people putting together fundraisers for the family.
And I saw that too.
There's a ride someone's put together, a memorial ride for in honor of Johnathan. So our community's still showing up and showing out for this family. Again, I want to, kind of reiterate what Nick said. The people that came from all over the county and the state and other states to help us, I mean, we can never say thank you enough for
Yeah.
the support that you showed, not only us, but for Johnathan and his family.
Yeah.
That was the biggest part of all of it. The outpouring that we had, it far exceeded the county boundaries. And then those people in turn are just bragging on how well Walker County represented for ourselves, and I'm just proud of them too.
Yeah. Now, anything else that we haven't covered since we're right at the end of the time here?
I would like to ask the community to just please be mindful of what's being said on Facebook, because the family sees that stuff, and I know the whole situation's hard for them. Just I know you may feel a certain way, but please be mindful of what you post or what you say, because his family's a very sweet family.
Yeah.
And I know that it probably upsets them to see some of the things that people are putting out there. And I don't think people really realize the depth of some of the things they post or say, or their opinions.
Yeah.
But it's hurtful to the people that were out there, and I'm sure, it's hurtful to the family as well.
Yeah. Even when people think that they're posting something that would be helpful, just think about it a second
Just
time.
be very mindful.
Yeah.
Type it and delete it if you need to.
Right. Yeah.
Just be mindful, because we've got a lot of responders that have had a lot of, the group that found him, we have a lot of things that people don't see behind the scenes.
The best comment is, I'm praying for the family.
Absolutely.
That's
That's
the
thing.
comments that you should be seeing. not-
Right. Yeah.
Not conspiracies, not what you think did or didn't happen.
Right.
Just
Or who's
simple-
at fault, things like that.
Just
like,
as simple that
Everybody
I'm
lost
behind you,
in this
and
situation.
we're praying for that family.
yeah. The you mentioned the ride. It's the Jonathan Everett John Boley Memorial Ride. It's going to be on Saturday, January 24th, from 11:30 to 3:30 at the Old Souls Trading Company on Highway 69 in Jasper. It's a memorial ride to support the family of the incident, help with anything financially they may need at this time. Any and all vehicles are welcome for the ride. So
Yes, there's also a local flower shop selling bows. If people want to put out bows, that will also go to the family. I think there's some stickers you might buy for your vehicle, but all of that's in support of Jonathan's family.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. I know y'all are tired, and it has been a long several days, but I do appreciate y'all coming in to talk about it. And anything we can do to help spread word during any of these type situations, we're happy to do that too, and help in any way we can.
And I thank you for letting us come out and talk a little bit about it to kind of give a better picture of what did and didn't take place.
Yeah, yeah.
And one day I'd like to come back and just do an in-depth, what qualifies as an Amber Alert.
Yeah, and that's something we hadn't mentioned, is that a lot of people were asking why there wasn't an Amber Alert. Mention
Quickly,
that.
people need to go back and research the creation. That came out of an Amber, a young lady getting kidnapped, abducted, and murdered. And a lot of people don't know even the background of Amber Alert, and they could go back and research that.
Right.
And then the protocols for that, like the sheriff said, they're so strict. We
Yeah.
cannot do. We cannot do.
I did have one lady while we were there, and it probably wasn't the best time for her to approach me after about 30 hours in to tell me how sorry I was for not doing an Amber Alert.
Right.
I told her I'm not in charge of the state or the federal system or the criteria that allows it. I wish we could do it for everyone,
Yeah,
but that's not, I don't make that decision.
right.
And
But an
obviously-
Amber Alert's typically when a child is taken by
Yes.
A
somebody.
confirmed
Yeah.
abduction. And I believe the intent of that is just like when we have tornado warnings, we don't set the sirens off or the pagers off back to back to back to back to back. You
Right.
become complacent.
Right.
So I think one of the reasons that is so strict is if every, like we said, we have missing kids here a lot.
Oh,
If
yeah.
we put out an Amber Alert, you may have 20 a week.
Yeah.
You know,
People become complacent to those.
We
kind
were,
of things.
we were on scene at about 1:00 initially. Got our deputy to start working with the Fusion Center to get out an emergency endangered child.
I was gonna say, you guys did get the endangered child
Yes.
alert out.
Because that's what we qualified to put out to
Right.
the public. A lot of people ask why it didn't go out over phones. Well, we also have no control about what is pushed out to phones. That's
Yeah.
just, he did everything he could to get that alert. That was approved, that went out. It just didn't come across phones.
Yeah, it's not
like
a,
an Amber.
that's what I told her, this is not a local sheriff decision. All I can do is present the paperwork in to either qualify or not qualify for an Amber Alert or just an endangered child alert, and that's what we did.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was done, fairly quickly.
yeah. Well, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. And the rest of the week, we got shows all week lined up. Tomorrow, Hart will be in, and we'll post on our social media pages what they're going to be talking about as far as counseling goes. But if you have any questions for Hart, or you think that there's any counseling need in your life, be sure to message us ahead of time. We can get you connected with them. Then on Thursday, I'm going to have Senator Matt Woods coming in to talk about the legislative session. And then on Friday, I've got Eagles Wings gospel group going to come in and talk about the things that they do and the concerts they do around the county and all over the area. So it should be a good week here on Live at 9. I say it every day when we leave. Be kind and love, and I mean it more today than ever, probably with the things that we've seen over the last week. So be kind and love until tomorrow. This is Live at 9 with James Phillips on WJLX.